So you have officially decided to commit to New York City. I am very, very proud of you. I know it's very, very scary, but I do have to say, as someone who's lived here for quite some time, it's very, very worth it. I know that there's probably so much going through your mind right now, and you're excited, but also extremely, extremely nervous. And I have to say, that was exactly me in my early 20s as well. I could not wait to move out of my hometown, my home state, and finally come to New York City. But I was really, really scared because I wanted to make sure that I was here for the long haul and didn't have to go back home. But at the same time, I do want to remind you that even though you probably have a similar mindset to what I just said, I want you to also remember that it's not the end of the world if you do have to go back home or you want to go back home after living in New York City. I think that's something that people are really, really ashamed about, and they feel like they didn't make it if they're going back home, and they're kind of embarrassed to go back to the people in their lives and tell them that. But it's something that you definitely shouldn't be embarrassed about. New York City isn't for everybody, and it's a really, really hard place to live. And people who judge you because you decide to go back home, if that's the case, they're in the wrong and they just completely don't understand you or New York City. So first, I wanted to put that out there because I want you to know that it's okay if you decide to leave New York City at some point. But right now, you're making your way to New York City, so it's time to get excited. You will feel overwhelmed at first. You will. Everybody does. Because depending on where you're coming from, unless you're coming from another city, if you're moving from a small suburban town like I was, it is night and day compared to where you're probably coming from. Even if you're coming from another city, I honestly think there's no other city like New York City in the world. And New York City is really, really, really big, especially if you are considering all the 5 boroughs. It's absolutely insanely large. It can be so overwhelming because there's just so much here and so many people. In the beginning, if you're coming to New York City alone and you don't really know anybody here, it is going to feel really, really lonely. It's crazy that 8 million people live in the city, yet you can feel so alone at times, even though there's 8 million people here. My advice is to put yourself out there as fast as possible to meet as many friends as you can quickly. Now, I do want you to also keep in mind, you're going to meet all different types of people here. And depending on where you're coming from, you're probably used to being around people pretty much just like you. And that is not the case in New York City. You're going to meet everybody from all different backgrounds, all different hobbies and interests. Everyone is here. I want you to be open-minded when actually meeting new people here because you never know who your next best friend is going to be. Now, I do advise you to start putting yourself out there and trying to meet friends as fast as possible. But I do also want you to keep in mind that it is going to take a little bit of time to meet the right people. Now, depending on what age that you're coming to New York City, your experience is going to be a little bit different. I came to New York City in my early 20s, and I do have to say, in your early 20s, you meet a lot of people very quickly, and you have a lot of fun with a lot of different friend groups. But at the same time, if you're trying to make genuine friends in New York City, keep that in mind as well, because people who are just there to go out and drink with you are very different than genuine lifelong friends. Maybe you're okay with just having those type of friends or starting off with those type of friends in the beginning, but I do want you to keep that in mind. It's very easy to make friends here that are just all about going out and partying. And that brings me to another great piece of advice, and it's don't blow your money right away when moving into New York City. It is so easy to do that because things can be very, very expensive here. At the same time, you need to make sure that you are careful when going out, and even sometimes look for deals when you're going out because they do exist. If you're open to going to like happy hours or finding cheap food options, they do exist out there, and there are ways to make sure that you're not literally struggling to pay rent every single month because trust me, so many people are when they first come to New York City, myself included when I first came here. A lot of people picture this amazing dream life when they're coming to New York City. They picture this crazy, amazing apartment just like they saw in like a movie or a TV show. And I do have to say, when you first come to New York City, especially if you're coming here with not a lot of money, you are not going to have a dream apartment. It is almost weird if you do have a dream apartment here because apartments are small, tiny, and pretty much subpar here, especially if you're looking to get in a really, really trendy, hot neighborhood that everybody wants to be in. So I want you to be okay with not having this dream apartment. It is completely normal here that your first apartment here is nothing special at all. And honestly, if you're first coming to New York City, you shouldn't be spending a lot of time in your apartment anyway. You should be going out in the city and exploring everything the city has to offer. I almost think that when people splurge and spend all this money on this crazy nice apartment in the beginning, if they can, I almost think it's a waste of money because when you're first coming to New York City, why would you want to spend so much time in your apartment? Go for an apartment that's a little bit more budget friendly and keep the money in your pocket and save it for experiencing New York City. Like I said, these apartments are very small in New York City, so don't overpack when coming here. New York City teaches you how to become a minimalist really quickly because you physically do not have the space to put your belongings. So I would suggest packing really, really light. Now, I know a lot of you out there can't imagine moving to New York City without your entire wardrobe, but I really, really do advise you to declutter and try to bring as little as possible when you're here because when you're living in a really, really small apartment with just so much stuff, it just becomes really, really overwhelming. So that's something to keep in mind. As a little bonus tip, what you could do is if you have a lot of things that you can sell for cash that you really don't need anymore. Do that before coming to New York City, because you can come to New York City with a couple more $1,000s in your bank just because of that. And I do have to say that's something that I did as well. So another thing that everyone should do when they come here is put yourself out there in your career. Now, maybe you have a career that you already work in, that you will continue working in New York City, or maybe you're starting over in a brand new career and you're kind of just like dipping your toes in for the first time. Regardless of what industry you work in, put yourself out there, take risks, meet people, and just take advantage of the opportunity to get ahead in your industry. Now, I have to say, there's nothing like the energy in New York City. Something about this city just makes people more inspired to just achieve more in their life. So I really want you to take advantage of that energy, because I can almost guarantee you that no matter where you're coming from around the world, you're going to be more inspired to just do bigger and better things in your career by living here. So take advantage of that. So I'm really, really excited for you to finally move to New York City. I hope that you have such an amazing experience, and I would love to be here for you in any way that I can just to make your experience better. Now, I would love to know in the comments, if you are moving to New York City, what scares you the most about the city? Or if you already moved to New York City, what has your experience been so far? As always, I just love hearing from you guys in the comments.